Good afternoon. This is Trang Bo at the California ISO. Thank you for joining us for the Application Delivery Resiliency Forum, February 7, 2024. The call will be recorded and published on the ISO website, and participants are muted upon entry, so you may need to unmute yourself via the WebEx as well as your audio line, and you can also send a message in the chat to be addressed as well. Again, thanks for joining us. I'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so this is our agenda. This is our third occurrence of this weekly meeting to support through the transition of the ADR URL change. So no changes to the agenda, so continue forward with just a reminder of where you can find the presentation materials as well as the recording. So let's go over a status update. So for the UI, again, all the new UI URLs except for TR are available now. As of yesterday, all of the old UI URLs have been decommissioned, except for BAYOP and BSAP UI. We'll cover that a little bit more in an upcoming slide. The old UI URLs for BAYOP and BSAP are set to be decommissioned tentatively February 15th, 2024. In the API space, all new API URLs continue to be available, and then the old API URLs cutover is TBD at this time. So it's no longer February 19th. We're committed to, again, resolving the issues that have been reported and then working with our customers to schedule an appropriate cutover date. Okay. I'm going to move on to just the overall status and timeline. This is the UI and the API status updated since yesterday's activity to decommission a lot of the old UI URLs. So I'm not going to go over that in detail, but this was here for reference in the presentation that would be posted after the call. Okay, no changes to actions required. This is just, again, a reminder of information to provide if you are reporting issues via city to us. And then so I'm going to stop here and spend a little time on the UI details. Okay, so again, as I mentioned, the UI cutover was complete yesterday afternoon, with the exception of the BAYOP and BSAP UIs. And the reasoning behind that is because we still do see a high volume of traffic to the old BAYOP and BSAP UI URLs. And also due to the criticality of those systems, we wanted to make sure we didn't have significant impacts to our users that we still see connecting to the old UI URLs. So what we're doing now to address that and to reduce the number of those that are hitting the old BAYOP and BSAP UIs is specific outreach. So we're able to see who's accessing the old URLs, and we're doing targeted outreach to the organizations with the list of users that we still see, so that each organization can put an extra focus on shifting to the new BAYOP and BSAP UIs. Okay. So there are no known issues to report, and then of course we'll continue to monitor city for any issues. Okay, so the table reflects, you know, in the color coding what is remaining. So you'll see in the new UI URLs, BAYOP and BSAP are available. They're green. TR is yet to be available. The availability of the new TR UI URL will coincide with the implementation of the TR upgrade that's planned for the end of February. And then when it comes to old UI URL, you can see that there are only 3 left. One is TR, as mentioned, and the other 2 are BAYOP and BSAP that are scheduled to be shut down target next Thursday, February 15th. Of course, we'll send a notice confirming that prior to the BAYOP and BSAP UI decommission date. Again, our focus is really just on specific outreach for BAYOP and BSAP to complete that cutover. Okay. Any questions or comments on the UI, or if anybody had any issues from the decommission of the application yesterday, we'd like to hear about that too. Okay.
Hey, Trang, this is Bruce. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Bruce. Yes, please
hey.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, over here, I mean, pretty much everyone always accesses, you know, the UIs via your market applications dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
And those are all the new, you know, UI URLs, right?
That's right. Yep.
And so that's why I'm just kind of wondering why, you know, I guess people are, you know, just have a bookmark or something with those old URLs in their favorites, but aren't really using that dashboard to access those UIs. Does that seem right?
Yeah, that's kind of what we suspect too, Bruce. So I'm glad that you mentioned that, because what you're doing, your organization is doing, is exactly our best practice recommendation, is that we have 4 separate portals: the MPP, the portal.kaiso.com, the WEIM portal, as well as the RC portal that has the UI URLs, and we always advise and recommend that customers launch from there to have the right URL. So those that are still lingering, we do suspect what you just mentioned is that they must have it favorited, and we are guiding them to launch from the portals as well.
Yeah, the one thing I would mention, it's probably a small point, is, you know, when you hover over, you know, the names on that dashboard, you know, you can see the URL and like the below left, and, you know, the BSAP, the BAYOP, you know, those all kind of correspond to that UI interface you have in that spreadsheet. But when you hover over the ADS, it still has ads.prod.kaiso.com. And, you know, the UI new that you have on that sheet just has ads.kaiso.com. So at least the one when I hover over it on your dashboard, you know, it's a different URL than, you know, what's on that sheet that you're showing.
Okay. So that is really helpful too. So both ads.prod and ads.kaiso.com are the newer URLs. So ADS wasn't part of this cutover, but but I put it there for reference, just to say that it should not have changed as part of this, but nonetheless, it should be accurate. So I'll take a note to update that, Bruce.
And is anyone, I mean, no one to your knowledge is having problems getting into the UIs with the new URLs? It's just like they're using the old ones through some other process, but no one's having a problem getting into them, right?
Yes, that is our understanding. They've been available for quite some time, I believe, since maybe even before November.
Yeah.
And so, you know, any questions that we've gotten have been addressed since then that we're aware of. Yep.
All right. Thanks. That's it for me.
Okay. Thank you, Bruce. Those are great questions, and I hope it brings some, you know, visibility for others. Okay. Kevin, please go ahead and unmute.
This is Kevin. I got a quick question for you.
Wait one
I'm sorry.
Second, Kevin. Matt Coate on our side wanted to ask, please.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that all of the production applications are in that zone .prod.kaiso.com, and that we kept the short names ads.kaiso.com for convenience. They both actually go the same place, so we will just tighten up what you see when you hover over that link, because like Trang said, that was in a prior deployment. But just so everyone knows, they are all going to the same place. The shorter names are just convenience.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Matt. Okay. All right. Sorry, Kevin, please go ahead.
Yes. My question for you is that for the TR that yet to be cut over, I believe that you said that the application is actually according to the TR upgrades on the 27, right? So I believe that you may or may not aware that we are still having an issue on the TR. If that is the case, is like, you know, that city ticket cannot be addressed before 27, would it be like push over, like postponed it again on the TR? Yeah. Cover possible?
Yeah. So just so that group knows too. So there are two separate efforts that are impacting TR. One is this URL change, and then the other is actually the TR upgrade initiative. So these two efforts are aligned, and what we have in map stage right now is the TR upgrade. And I know that Kevin's organization has been heavily testing, and we appreciate that, but there are still some open questions that we're working through with his organization, testing in map stage and working with our SMEs. So on the application upgrade itself, it's subject for the production deployment to the normal readiness criteria. And one of the criteria that we vet before we actually move forward in production as planned is our customer readiness. So if we have open city cases with you, Kevin, then we won't be able to necessarily pass our production readiness and get a go decision. And so at that point, the team will continue to reevaluate what the appropriate date is.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, I don't want to say that it'll move, but like as I mentioned, we'll continue to work with you to see what how we can coordinate and make sure that that upgrade, when it is scheduled, doesn't negatively impact your organization if you still have open items. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thanks. Okay, any other questions or comments on the UI? Okay, so let's go on the API, again, for the UIs, no cities to report at this time, as I mentioned. Okay, let's go to the APIs. So no changes here. The green is everything that we would like customers to cut over to as soon as possible. And then the yellow is what will be upgraded at a later time. But again, once you switch over to the new and it works fine for you, you can stay on those new URLs indefinitely. We don't have a cutover target for the APIs yet. It was February 19th, but as we'll go into, we still have some open issues that we want to work through. All right, so let me go into the details of those. So these two issues are just carryover from last week, so we do have some more information that I wanted to cover. So for those that are experiencing intermittent connection resets, that's affecting submits and retrieves on multiple applications. So at least Cyber, BAYAP, BSAP, CMRI, DRS, OMS, potentially others, but definitely those are the ones that have been reported. And the update for today is that, as we mentioned last time, our team continuously works with our customers for more information, as well as our ADR vendor. And what we came up with is that there's a recommendation to increase the buffer size from 64 to 1024. And we're hoping that that will address the connection resets. So this change right now is under our final testing in our non-production environment. We're planning to make that change on Monday, the 12th. And that once that change is made, that will be effective for map stage and production. And at that time, we'll go through and advise those who have the city cases open, or even anybody else who wants to retest, can retest that in map stage and production for those payloads that they have been seeing the connection resets on. Okay, so that's the update on that one. I know that affects a lot of folks for, either different payload sizes or different character limits. And so once we get that change in, we'll be reaching out for feedback on your retesting of those submits and retrieves. So on this first item, does anybody have any questions, comments?
Yeah, this Bruce again at Bonneville. Obviously we've done testing with you all. We've had some issues with the file size, and I'm just kind of curious if anyone else on this call would, be willing to, explain if they've had any issues on the APIs, testing with bandwidth size, with BSAP, due to our payload, with BAYAP, it's our RTSI submissions. I'm just curious if anyone else has had the same issues we've had with our vendor.
So I know that Dan has a hand up, and let me just address it from what we see on the ISO, and then I'd love to hear from the other customers. So you can see that there are already several city cases that have been created. And so, Bruce, I can assure you that there are others that are running into those connection resets for either a file size, not exactly the same size as your organization is experiencing, but even, you know, it seems to be a consistent size with it by organization. So some, I think, are they're seeing failures over 60 kilobytes or so. I don't remember the exact size. And then some organizations are reporting that when it's over 8,000 characters, it's consistently failing. So that's what we see. But Dan, I'll go ahead to you and see if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, this is Dan Myers with OATI. So the testing I did in the past week, I was finally able to narrow down that it was definitely file sizes for me over 60K that were causing the problem. But when I did a gzip request compression, then I was able to get larger file sizes through. So my question is, I'm glad to see you're increasing this buffer size. It sounds like that's something that would help me for sure. Should I also pursue request compression as well?
So thank you, Dan, for sharing that too. And Matt has his hand up, so I'm going to let him take a stab at addressing your question or adding some comments, then we can discuss further.
So you'll
Matt?
notice that 8,000 characters is where we're having the challenge, and that is exactly at 64K, which is what this buffer is. So when you gzip a file, it's dropping down inside this buffer. The recommendation has always been base64 encode and compress on submit. You get 85–90% compression ratio with XML and JSON. So in order to not just transmit the white space in the file, the compression is definitely needed. If we compress, we should have no trouble with the 1 meg buffer size that we're going to put in place. The smaller payloads, they're going to go through because the buffer is bigger, but I would recommend to everybody to compress it rather than paying for internet bandwidth.
And it looks like gzip compression was working okay for me in my SOAP UI test. That sounds like an acceptable compression method for you, correct?
That's always been the recommendation from us, was base64 encode and gzip.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for working with us on the issue.
Yeah, thank you so much, Matt. I want to address some comments in the chat too that I think that are related to this. So TID has also reported issues, and they're a little concerned that the file size is not the issue. It's because often TID has small payloads that are succeeding through manual upload, but not when they're sent from the vendor. And I think, Matt, you and I talked a little bit about this too, about how the data is being sent may cause, you know, how big it is, how often or it's hitting that buffer size. Did you want to add anything else that might help to Andrew Crawford's comment too?
Andrew, I think depending on the piece of middleware you're using, it may be that they're not compressing. I definitely did notice that with some of the larger payloads using some of the provided middleware that the compression wasn't there. The file size being small, if it's below, you know, 50K or so, even with the middleware, it should go through unless the middleware is handing some padding. I don't know if you have an open city case. If you do, maybe you could drop that number in the chat so I could look at it specifically for you, or feel free to reach out and we'll get a city case going so we can track this and make sure we answer your question. But off the top of my head, I don't necessarily know the exact TID issue, but we'll definitely work on it for you, with you.
Hey, Trang, this is Stanley. Just from a PCI perspective, I think the summary from what we're seeing across our clients is about a 1.5 megabyte file size is where we start running into the issues. But we do see the occasional, issue in connection with smaller files too, like folks were saying.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And I think when I spoke with the team and Matt about that too, it's just based on the file size. You're more likely to run into that buffer limit. But yeah, I don't know. Matt, just correct me if I misstated anything. Okay.
No, I
Okay.
think that's right. As far as the PCI interactions go, it's a slightly different case than the regular case we're having. So I was talking with Trang and a couple of the other engineers yesterday. So what we'd like to do is we put the buffer change in, I believe it was this morning, into our test environment. We're going to put it in on Monday to the down level environments in production that you all can interface with. And once that's in place and we've kind of validated that the other issues without PCI go away, I'd like to circle back with you and your team and just retest so we can see, you know, if anything has changed or what the errors are at that point. Having more than one error stacked up together makes the troubleshooting very difficult. We know we have this issue, so we want to address that first and then take another stab at the PCI specifically.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I've already alerted our guys to plan to retest sometime later on Monday, and then we can go from there. That sounds fine.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
And okay, so a couple things. One is just wanted to acknowledge Joel's comment about running into the 8,000 character limit. Thank you again for reporting that promptly so that we've had that on our radar too and being patient with us. So we're hoping that you'll be able to retest that after the change on Monday too. And then one other thing that I wanted to just remind folks is I know that there's a lot of city cases open and a lot of these you've been waiting for some time, and just wanted to remind folks that we do have an ISO, on the ISO side, a Tiger team of technical folks that are in customer service and that are engaged to prioritize these issues. And we just, you know, again, the city cases with as much information as you can provide per the guidance here will be very helpful to us. But just know that, you know, some of these, we know they've been open for a while, but we do have a dedicated team focused on it. Okay. All right. Let me just review the comments and see if there's anything else. Okay, good. And so if there's no other questions or comments on that, I wanted to cover the second one. So we are seeing for submits and retrieves on ADS, BSAP, Cyber, Orion, ALF, and potentially other systems, but definitely those ones we've seen reports on, this intermittent HTML response for big IP logout page. And so we've been reaching out to some customers to provide us the full responses, and we have been getting feedback back. And in addition to that, we've been working with our vendor to look into the information that we have received so far, and I think that we do have a lead as far as, you know, some feedback from them about some maybe session ID errors that we're going to look into further with the full response files that we're getting, and then have and then we'll have to report back on additional next steps here. So I think the update there really is that we do have a little bit of a lead with our vendor and the information that we're getting, but we don't have a change planned yet, and so we're working through the next steps to take on the second item. So does anybody have anything to add or questions or comments on this big IP logout page API response? Okay, Deborah?
It's Bruce, BPA again. Just that on the 12th of this month that we start testing in map stage. I mean, is there any specific test? Should we just do the same test we've always been doing, you know, with BSAP and BAYOP, and just and by that time, you know, all these new updates to bandwidth size and character limits, you know, should be incorporated in you know, map stage BSAP and BAYOP?
Yes, that change is planned. I believe it is 10 a.m. Pacific on Monday, and then after that, you should do the same test in map stage where you're trying to reach that threshold. We're seeing failures for. So for your organization, it was, the 1.5 meg or so, and then for others, it would be that 8,000 plus characters. So yeah, whatever threshold it was failing on before, then we want you to retest that in that stage the same way.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All right, Deborah, please go ahead and unmute your line.
One thing that I was going to throw out there that I had been seeing on the big IP error messages was getting that message when we had an invalid cert. We sort of found that inadvertently, but looked like we were getting that message instead of a security message. So
okay,
get that logged for you, but throw it out there for now.
Okay, that is definitely helpful because yeah, so we can take a look at that because I don't think that would be expected if you had an invalid cert, but we would love to take a look at that a little bit further. And then also if you could share with us if you're still seeing that issue, once you've addressed the invalid cert too, that would help, Deborah. So we'll look forward to your additional information.
Absolutely. Okay,
thank you. All right, any other questions or comments on the big IP logout issue? Okay, and then for AUP, we don't have any new updates here. The AUP, again, will be enforced on a new API. We had a couple of cities open. One was just a clarification on the global rate limit, so that is now closed. We addressed that on an earlier call. And then we had an enhancement request for considering including an SCID in the key, so we're still evaluating that as an enhancement to provide more flexibility for our API users. Any questions or comments on global rate limiting and AUP? All right. So next steps, we have a call next Wednesday, the 14th. And again, of course, once we get the change in, we'll make our way through the city cases and put comments in as we can. But please feel free to reach out and add comments in the city or reach out to us directly for any questions or comments. We'll post this presentation and recording today. And that is all I have. Does anybody have any final questions, comments for today? All right. Thank you all very much. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.